And welcome to the October 2023 Council Agenda Briefing. We acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their elders past and present. I would like to advise everyone that the audio of this meeting is being broadcast to YouTube. I request everyone to please turn off your mobile phones. I remind you that audio recording of the meeting proceedings and photography within the chamber is prohibited unless prior approval has been granted, and councillors and city officers are reminded to disclose any declarations of financial interests and interests affecting impartiality and are requested to activate their microphones when addressing the meeting. So, with that, welcome. We move on to item 1, which is the declaration of opening, and I declare this meeting open at 6:01 p.m. Items for Council. Agenda items 2, 3, 6, 7, 8.1, 8.2, 9, 11, 13 and 14 will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting to be held on 31 October 2023. That brings us to item 4, which is attendance. Item 4.1 is apologies. We haven't received any apologies for this evening. Item 4.2 is approved leaves of absence, and there are no approved leaves of absence for this evening. That brings us to item 5, which is declarations of interest. Bear with me because there's a few that I need to read out here. So at item 10.1.1, Mayor Greg Milner, that's me, I've declared an impartiality interest as I serve on the board of Amaroo Care Services Inc. Amaroo operates in the aged care and retirement village sectors, albeit in different catchment areas to the city of South Perth. And in addition, I know professionally people who are employed at 2 of the 3 tenderers relevant to this item. Councillor Bronwyn Waugh has declared an impartiality interest at item 10.1.1 as follows. To the extent that it might be considered an impartiality interest, I hereby disclose that in 2019, I acted for a client on a matter involving the sale of their business to Amana Living. In 2019, I acted for a local government in respect to a prosecution of one member of the management team of Amana Living in respect to a breach of notice, and the firm of which I'm a director advised a local government in respect of a matter involving Amana Living. I have no other knowledge of the matter and did not have any involvement in any matter of advice or otherwise in respect to Amana Living. To the extent that it might be considered an impartiality interest, I hereby disclose that the firm of which I'm a director, is that a repetition? I'll keep ready. Advised local government in respect of a matter involving Amana Living. I have no other knowledge of the matter and did not have any involvement in any matter of advice or otherwise. Mayor Greg Milner, that's me again, has declared an impartiality interest in item 10.1.2, as I know a number of the nominees relevant to that item. Councillor Mary Choi has also declared an impartiality interest in item 10.1.2 for the reason that some of the nominees are known to me. Councillor Bronwyn Waugh has declared a proximity interest in item 10.3.2 as I live on Mary Street within proximity of number 45 Mary Street, Como, and I previously raised an objection to a change of use. I've declared an impartiality interest in item 10.4.10 as I know 3 of the applicants relevant to that item, and Councillor Mary Choi has also declared an impartiality interest in item 10.4.10 as some of the applicants are known to me. Councillors, does anyone else have an interest that they wish to declare relevant to tonight? Councillor Navard?
Yes, I'm sorry, but I need to declare 10.4.2. Yeah, I beg your pardon about that.
So 10.4.2, that's an impartiality interest?
Yes.
And the reason is?
10.4.10.
10.4.10.
Yes.
All right.
Some of those people are known to me.
Thank you. So that's an impartiality interest, item 10.4.10. Some of the applicants are known to you? All right, thank you. Councillors, any further declarations? No. Okay. Moving on. Item 8 is presentations. Item 8.3 is deputations. And this evening, we have one speaker who will have up to 10 minutes to address council. Just before I invite Mr. Peter Quinn to the microphone, because we do have a new council, this is an opportunity for the council to hear from a representative of the community and then ask questions of that community member afterwards if you would like to. So with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Peter Quinn of Como. He is speaking for the officer recommendation at item 10.1.1. Welcome, Mr. Quinn. The microphone is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Greg. Okay, I'll just get settled. Okay, yes, my name is Peter Quinn. I am President of the Residents Association at Collier Park. On behalf of the residents, we want to speak in support of Amana Living joining at Collier Park. For some of you who are a long way from retirement, a lot of young people around, retirement is a very special time in life for us. And some of you may not be familiar with the Collier Park facilities down there, so I'll briefly give you an overview. It's located on Morrison Road, Como. It accommodates 168 units, of which 62 are rentals. It is set in an environmental, friendly and relaxing location. We have a waterfall at one end, which travels down the creeks into two large ponds, which is the enjoyment of the residents. We have long, winding walkways along the areas which are protected by trees. We have a wonderful lifestyle. We don't have swimming pools or gyms, but we do have the environment, and that's what a lot of us appreciate in our retirement years. When Amana Living was announced as the preferred tender for the village, it was generally accepted as a positive. Since then, Amana has given us a presentation on their views of the future, and it basically covered many of the areas that we hoped to hear and would support the lifestyle that we currently enjoy. Prior to that meeting, many residents were hesitant and worried about what the future held for them. It was mainly with the renters, who we have 62 of, but that was quickly put to rest with the fact that they assured us that rentals would be available in the village until we required them. That made us really feel more relaxed, and at the end of that meeting there was a great relief from our residents that we were looking at some organisation that had the experience in retirement villages that would help to continue our lifestyle. Since then, we've had lots of positive feedback, and we're confident now that the organisation, Amana, would be an organisation would put retirees first. Since then, lots of interest has continued in a positive way, even to the extent of our life leases plus our rentals, thinking more along the lines of what happens when we can't support ourselves. Well, with Amana Living, there are opportunities for that and gives them a wider range of choices of what to do when it comes to that area. So we believe Amana Living is an organisation with a wide experience in retirement villages. In summary, I suppose, the overall feeling is that the residents believe that Amana Living would be an ideal fit for our village, and we would ask the councillors to look favourably on their submission when it comes to the vote. I can't say much more. I thank you for your time. I only hope that we can have that opportunity to work closely with them, and that our retirement in life plans will be things that we can look forward to in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. Just before you get up, I'll ask the councillors if any of them have any questions for you. Elected members, do we have any questions for Mr. Quinn? You got off scot-free. Well done. Thank you very much for your deputation, Mr. Quinn. We appreciate it. All right, that brings us to item 10, which is the draft October reports. I'm about to turn you over to the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Mike Bradford, to take you through the balance of the draft October reports. But before I do, once again, because we have a new council, this is an opportunity for councillors to ask questions of the administration on any of the items that we're going through the agenda here, but it's not a forum for making statements or entering into debate. That's what we'll be doing next week if we choose to debate certain items. So with that, Mr. Bradford, take it away.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Item 10.1.1 is the Collier Park Village request for proposal. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the outcome of the request for proposal process for Collier Park Retirement Village and to seek Council's authorisation for the City to enter into negotiations with the preferred proponent. The report outlines the assessment process used during the evaluation of proposals that were received, as well as the consultation undertaken with village staff, residents and elected members.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. Councillors, do we have any questions for the administration on this item this evening? No. And I'll just, so everyone knows, this is not the only forum where you can ask questions. If you have any, you're more than welcome to ask questions offline as well. With that, Mr. Bradford, next item, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Item 10.1.2, City of South Perth Volunteer of the Year Awards, Assessment and Recommendations for 2023. This report seeks council approval of the eligible nominations submitted for the 2023 City of South Perth Volunteer of the Year Awards program. There is a confidential attachment associated with this item as well.
So, elected members, any questions for this item, bearing in mind that if there's any questions that relates to information in the confidential attachment, let me know and we'll ask those questions behind closed doors later. Oh, and Collier Park Village residents, you're very welcome to stay and watch the rest of the show if you'd like to, but that's all for Collier Park Village tonight. By all means. And thank you for your attendance. So, elected members. Pleasure. Any questions about the Volunteer of the Year Awards? No. Next item, please, Mr. Bradford.
Mr. Mayor, item 10.3.1, Draft Payment in lieu of Parking Plan. This report presents the draft payment in lieu of parking plan for final approval before public advertising.
Any questions on this item, elected members? No? Next item, please, Mr. Bradford.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Item 10.3.2, proposed amendment approved use not listed, short-term accommodation, Lot 2, Unit 1, 45 Mary Street, Como. The purpose of this report is to consider an application to amend the development approval for a use not listed, that is short-term accommodation, at Lot 2, Unit 1 of 45 Mary Street, Como. The applicant is seeking to delete condition number 3 of the approval granted in September 2022, which time limited the use of the property for a period of 12 months. Approval of the current application will enable the property to be used as a short-term accommodation in perpetuity. This item is referred to Council as the proposed land use is a use not listed under Town Planning Scheme number 6 and therefore falls outside the delegation to officers. For the reasons outlined in the report, it is recommended that the application be approved.
Now, councillors, I do note that that there has been a declaration of a proximity interest on this item. So if there are any questions, just put up your hand and I'll ask Councillor Ward to leave the chamber. There are going to be questions? Yes. Councillor Ward, would you like to put the feet up in the councillors' lounge just while we deal with this item? We'll come and grab you as soon as the questions are done. All right, so for the purposes of the minutes, Councillor Ward has just left the chamber. Councillor Choi, I thought I saw your hand going up there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed there's a number of objections to this item and the officer recommendation. So I'd just like to clarify why short-term accommodation is not a listed use under TPS 6, i.e. what is the underlying principle of such exclusion, please?
Thank you. Ms Shaw, can I send that one your way?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. So the reason that the land use is not included in the current town planning scheme number 6 relates to the time at which the scheme was actually gazetted in itself. And at that time, there was no land use classification for short-term accommodation. So under the new draft local planning scheme number 7, we're looking to introduce the model land use provisions relating to short-term accommodation. And what that means is that there will be a permissibility associated with this type of use in future based on each individual zone in which it's proposed to be located. But any existing short-term accommodation would have what's known as non-conforming use rights and can carry forward despite the new scheme coming into effect. However, they would still need to comply with any conditions imposed on the development approval.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillor Choi.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Director Shaw. My next question is, what valid basis in planning do elected members have to reject the officer's recommendation on this item? And what are the possible implications if they do?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this is, of course, a quasi-judicial decision under the planning framework, which means that councillors are required to consider the application on its merits, having regard to relevant requirements under legislation, planning legislation. For the reasons outlined in the officer's report, we believe that the application is suitable for approval and that any other related impacts from a planning sense can otherwise be managed through a condition requiring compliance with the management plan. And for that reason, we believe it's appropriate for approval. However, should council refuse the application, there would be a right of review available to the applicant to the State Administrative Tribunal.
Councillor Choi.
Thank you again through the chair, Director Shaw. So I note on page 26 of the agenda that the city has included a financial implication of the ASAT application by the applicant being a potential risk if this officer recommendation is not accepted, as you've just mentioned. However, my understanding is that this is not a relevant planning consideration for council, and if that's correct, should elected members therefore disregard this in their assessment on this item?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So financial implications associated with this are not a relevant planning consideration in the same manner that commercial competition would not be a relevant consideration. The reason that the financial implications section has been included is for council to have regard to potential budget implications should an application for review be made and should the city require legal representation to defend the matter.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions on this item? Councillor Coveney.
Thank you, Mayor. What was the consequence if they do not comply with the management plan?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So there are enforcement provisions under the Planning and Development Act. There are a range of different options that the city could pursue depending on the nature of the non-compliance. So typically what would happen is that we would first investigate the matter and we would undertake compliance in that respect to determine whether there was a breach of the conditions of the planning approval or the management plan itself. We would try and work with the applicant in the first instance to bring the application back into compliance. If there was continued non-compliance, we could issue what's known as a planning infringement notice, or we could undertake a prosecution. The penalties for the prosecution under the Planning and Development Act are up to $250,000.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillor Choi.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, just following on from Councillor Coveney's question on the management order, what is the timeframe for compliance? Because I think, you know, we have discussed this previously, and I know I've spoken to residents about this previously, and yeah, I think there's some uncertainty around, are there any sort of strict timeframes around compliance, or is it just at the discretion of the city depending on the concern raised?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the applicant would be required to comply with the conditions of approval straight away. So as soon as the application is approved, it becomes a live approval and they need to comply. In terms of the enforcement action that would otherwise be undertaken, it depends on the nature of the breach of the condition. So if it was a risk to health and safety, it would be something that would be undertaken straight away. If it's a matter of, say, for example, parking, we could undertake regular inspections to determine the extent of the issue that's occurring.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions for the administration on this item this evening? No. Okay. Could someone please fetch Councillor Ward back? Thank you very much. And for the purposes of the minutes, Councillor War has just re-entered the chamber. Mr Bradford, next item, please.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.3.3, proposed 6 four-storey grouped dwellings, lot 277, number 120 Mary Street, Como, section 31, reconsideration. The city received an application for 6 four-storey group dwellings on lot 277, 120 Mary Street, Como in August of 2022. The application was refused by council at its ordinary meeting held on the 18th of April 2023, and the applicant subsequently sought a review of that decision by the State Administrative Tribunal. Minor modifications have been made to the original proposal following 2 mediation sessions, and as such, the SAT has issued an order on the 20th of September inviting council to reconsider the matter under section 31 of the State Administrative Tribunal Act 2004. The modifications that were made include minor revisions to the front elevation of Unit 1, a revised landscaping plan to include 3 native trees, and additional conditions to address universal and a proposed access easement. Accordingly, the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions on this item this evening? Councillor Choi.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to paragraph 2, the maximum $500,000 contribution for public art, just wondering which policy states that prescribed amount, please, because I couldn't find it.
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So under the Canning Bridge Activity Centre structure plan, there's a maximum contribution of $500,000.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions on this item this evening? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.3.4, draft local planning policy P303, design review panel, and draft local planning policy P316, developer contribution for public art and public art spaces, final adoption. The purpose of this report is for council to consider adopting a draft amended local planning policy design review panel and a draft amended local planning policy developer contribution for public art and public art spaces following advertising.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, do we have any questions on this item this evening? I think I saw Councillor Choi's hand up go first and then Councillor Navard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to page 38 of the agenda, the local planning policy developer contribution for public art and public art spaces, I see that for the Canning Bridge Activity Centre plan, as per the question Director Shaw just answered for me with the prior item, the $500,000 cap. I'm just wondering why the South Perth Activity Centre plan, the city is recommending a $1 million cap, a doubling, and then in all other areas, $500,000.
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the additional contribution of up to $1 million within the South Perth Activity Centre plan has been proposed to reflect the yield that you would otherwise be generated based on the codings that are provided within that structure plan, which are generally greater than the type of development yield you would expect to see in the Canning Bridge Activity Centre plan. The provision for $500,000 in all other locations is to reflect the type of building activity that would likely to occur and to send certainty to developers that there would be a maximum contribution in respect to what the anticipated cost of development within the city would actually be. But there is no statutory requirement other than the Canning Bridge Activity Centre Plan, which has been adopted by the West Australian Planning Commission, to otherwise include a cap. So it is open for council to remove the proposed cap in the policy if it seeks unlimited contributions based on the estimated cost of the proposed development.
I did see Councillor Navarne's hand go up there, so Councillor Navarne.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have one question. It's to do with the design review panel. Does the design review panel have the capacity to call upon additional specialist input to assist with the panel's deliberations?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So under the proposed policy, no. And the reason being is that design review panels typically only consider urban design related matters under State Planning Policy 7, which is design of the built environment. So they're looking at things like the functional build quality, legibility, sustainability and safety. The city otherwise assesses things related to other specialist areas such as noise and traffic as part of the assessment of the development application. And if there was a matter that we otherwise didn't have the expertise for, such as geotechnical reports, we can have the application peer reviewed as part of the assessment process.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillor Choi, I saw your hand go up there again.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. So following up from my last question, and thank you again to Dr. Shaw, Director Shaw for her response, in relation to the proposed introduction of a $1 million cap on the South Perth Activity Centre Plan area, to assist elected members in their decision, as you've outlined, are we able to sort of get some sort of idea of what has been spent so far in that area in terms of public art? Like, has it been more than $1 million? Like, what are the typical net worth of those developments and what has been spent, and so we can actually see what the public art is and what it has actually cost, because if $1 million is not going to go very far with some of these developments, it's going to be a little tiny envelope on the side of the building. I'm just wondering if we can get some sort of idea.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I did think that somebody would ask that. So the balance of the public art reserve as of June 2023 was $349,962. The total spend from the reserve from 2022 to 2023 has been $62,500. And I would need to go in to see exactly where that money was spent throughout the district. But typically to get a meaningful public art proposal that can weather public infrastructure and impacts in that respect, you would be looking at around at least $100,000 for each individual piece of art.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Any further questions for the administration on this item? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.3.5, Draft Local Planning Policy, Heritage Conservation and Development for advertising, and Local Planning Policy P313, Local Heritage Listing Revocation. The purpose of this report is to consider Draft Local Planning Policy Heritage Conservation and Development for the purposes of advertising, and to revoke Local Planning Policy P313, Heritage Listing.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions on this item? Councillor Navarne.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have two questions, if that's okay. This draft policy, draft local planning policy, heritage, conservation and development, this draft policy considers methods of dealing with existing structures that have previously been identified as being of historic worth. Will Development and Community Services be reviewing other city policies addressing ways of capturing in artistic, digital, botanical or monument forms the ethnographic aspects of City of South Perth history, which would include archaeological interpretation, storying and source document references? I believe some of this type of work has already been featured in redevelopment activities in Como.
Thank you. Ms Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we would. So the city actually recently reviewed Council Policy P119, which is the local history collection. So that policy provides the framework for the acquisition, preservation and organisation of any historical materials, including those that are donated to the city. There were no changes that were identified as part of that policy that would otherwise require further review. And also with the public art policy, local planning policy that we've just considered, the objectives within that policy provide for the promotion and delivery of public art that otherwise celebrates the city's history. So they're probably the two relevant policies that would be related to that. But we also have the Public Art Working Group, and through that there is an opportunity for elected members to review public art proposals from developers to ensure that they accurately reflect the city's identity.
Thank you. And a second one? In regard to city sites where a structure has already been adapted to another purpose, for example, I'm just taking a random one, which is Sopranos on Mill Point Road, and the facade has been transformed for the more recent purpose, will the city have a mechanism for still valuing the adapted structure?
Ms Shaw.
Thank you. Yes, so the city has an adopted local heritage inventory, and that's currently being reviewed by the city and will be presented to council in future. As part of the review, it would be bringing the heritage inventory into the new format, which is a local heritage survey. Within that document, there's what's known as a place record form, which is a listing of each of the places that have cultural or heritage significance within the district. And as part of that place record, it's required to be updated to reflect changes that have occurred to any of the listed buildings since the time of the last review. So we would be able to accurately capture any changes to historic places through those individual place record forms.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Councillors, any further questions on this item? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.4.1, Audit, Risk and Governance Committee. This report seeks the appointment of councillors to the Audit, Risk and Governance Committee for the period of 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Any questions, councillors? No. Next item, please.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.4.2, Chief Executive Officer Evaluation Committee. This report seeks the appointment of councillors to the Chief Executive Officer Evaluation Committee for the period 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Any questions on this item, councillors? No? Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Item 10.4.3, Rivers Regional Council. This report seeks the appointment of councillors to the Rivers Regional Council for the period 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions on this item? No. Next item, please.
Item 10.4.4, City of South Perth Inclusive Community Advisory Group. This report seeks the appointment of a councillor to the City of South Perth Inclusive Community Advisory Group for the period 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? No? Next item, please.
Item 10.4.5, Perth Airports Municipalities Group Incorporated. This report seeks the appointment of councillors of the Perth Airports Municipalities Group Incorporated for the period 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillor Sousa, a question?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bradford, I think you were the delegate for this for the past few years. Is that correct?
I attend, but I am not current. I can't be a delegate unless there are no council delegates in attendance, I think is the way it's worded.
And if I can ask a more generic question on this group, have you found, I guess, with regards to Perth Airport consulting on things like flight paths, the group's input has been, I guess, taken into account, or it's more of a...
I don't think it's of a great value to the city, to be honest. It assists the Perth Airport, I think under their Act, has an obligation to consult with local governments, and it is a mechanism that has allowed them to achieve that outcome and justify that outcome. But in terms of the effort in administering it and the effort in attending it, given the relatively small number of issues that we have with regard to aircraft flight path noise, I don't think it's of particular value or use to the city.
Any further questions on this item, councillors? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Item 10.4.6, City of South Perth Public Health Reference Group. This report seeks the appointment of a councillor to the City of South Perth Public Health Reference Group for the period 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions? No. Next item, please.
Item 10.4.7, City of South Perth Arts Advisory Group. This report seeks the appointment of 2 councillors to the City of South Perth Arts Advisory Group for the period 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Thank you. Any questions on this item, councillors? No questions. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Item 10.4.8, Western Australian Local Government Association South East Metropolitan Zone. This report seeks the appointment of councillors to the Western Australian Local Government Association South East Metropolitan Zone for the period 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.4.9, Local Emergency Management Committee for Canning South Perth Delegates. This report seeks the appointment of 2 council delegates to the Local Emergency Management Committee for Canning South Perth, for the period 31 October 2023 to 18 October 2025.
Thank you, Mr Bradford. Councillors, any questions on this item? No. Next item, please.
Item 10.4.10, appointment of community members to the City of South Perth Audit, Risk and Governance Committee. This report seeks council's endorsement of the recommended independent members of the City of South Perth Audit, Risk and Governance Committee.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Choi.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It may be confidential though, because it's in the confidential attachment, the details of those applicants.
We can.
We can go behind closed doors after we get past item 10 if you'd like to, Councillor Choi.
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'll make a note of that. Councillors, any questions on this item that relates to the open portion of the report? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Item 10.4.11, listing of payments of September 2023. This report presents the council a list of accounts paid under delegated authority between 1 and 30 September 2023 for information.
Any questions? Councillor Choi.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I've just noticed there is just shy of $50,000 in legal fees expended in the September expenditure, 3 quite hefty amounts in the tens of thousands. Can the City please outline what these payments were for or related to?
Should I send that to Mr Adams or Mr Lecoq?
I'll take it on notice and provide the information to all councillors.
Thank you, Mr Adams. Any further questions? Councillor Choi?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Director Adams. Has the CEO authorised the expenditure of any legal expenses on behalf of any elected member in this period or for any prior period, please?
No.
Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Cridland.
Just continuing on from Councillor Choi's vein, is it possible for members to get an idea of the ballpark fees that have been incurred in respect of the matter that's been sent back to us for reconsideration earlier in the agenda?
Ms Shaw, should I send that one your way?
I'm happy if it goes by email or orally now, whatever's easier.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In the financial implications section of the report, it's approximately 13,500 and the final total may be up to 15,000.
Thank you, Ms Shaw. Any further questions on this item, councillors? No. Next item, please, Mr Bradford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 10.4.11, Monthly Financial Statements 2023. The monthly financial statements are provided within attachments A through I with a high-level analysis contained in the comments of the report.
Any questions on this item, councillors? And that's a no. Okay. That finishes off item 10. We now move on to item 12, which is motions of which previous notice has been given. There's one item here. It's item 12.1. It's a notice of motion from Councillor Mary Choi entitled Community Safety and Crime Prevention Group, change to the terms of reference and membership. Councillors, do we have any questions for the administration on this item this evening? That's a no. Okay. In that case, we'll move on to item 15, which is when we would close the meeting to the public if there was a need to do so. And I understand that Councillor Choi does have a question relating to the confidential attachment on item 10.4.10. So at this stage, I'll ask the governance team to pause the recording, and if we can shut the door to the chamber there so we can go into closed session. Thank you, Mr Lecoq. Governance, are we back online? Thank you. All right. So we've just finished off item 15. That brings us to item 16, which is closure. Before I declare this meeting closed, I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and participation this evening. I declare the meeting closed at 6:45 p.m. Thank you all and good night.